Welcome to the Funeral Channel Network podcast. It is great to be back with you.
Great to be here.
Today we're heading into the deep end of a topic that sits right at the intersection of two of the most potent human fears.
Absolutely.
It's a place where, anxiety meets grief and where that pressure to perform just collides with the reality of loss.
It's a fascinating and, frankly, a terrifying intersection for most people.
Terrifying is the word.
We are talking about vulnerability on a massive scale.
Right. So let's just set the stage for a second. If you look at any survey of human phobias, what is consistently, number one,
It's not spiders.
it isn't spiders and it isn't heights. It is public speaking. Glossophobia, that visceral, sweaty palm, dry mouth terror of standing in front of a crowd with a microphone.
It triggers that ancient fight-or-flight response. I mean, your brain literally says, all eyes are on me, I am in danger.
Exactly. Now, take that baseline biological terror and drop it into the most emotionally charged environment imaginable.
A funeral.
A funeral. A room full of weeping people, heavy with silence, focused entirely on the legacy of a human life. And you're dealing with your own grief, the room's collective sadness, and then, suddenly, there is an invitation.
The invitation.
The variant opens the floor. They
Yeah.
call it sharing time or open reflections or maybe words of remembrance.
And that is the moment the air just leaves the room for a lot of people. It is the double fear.
The double fear, that's it.
You have the performance anxiety of the speech, and then it's compounded by the emotional weight of the occasion. It's a perfect storm of anxiety.
That is what we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into sharing time. We have pulled together some incredible insights from the complete guide to sharing during a funeral service, and we're layering in some really practical frameworks from the funeral program site.
Okay.
And the mission here is to turn this moment of paralyzing fear into a toolkit for connection.
And I think the toolkit aspect is so vital here because for many, that invitation to speak feels like a trap.
It does. It feels like a test.
It feels like a test of friendship, right? If I really loved them, I would speak. But then that fear of breaking down or saying the wrong thing or just rambling, it just takes over.
It's the classic double bind.
Yeah.
I want to honor them, but I absolutely do not want to embarrass myself or, even worse, ruin the service.
Precisely. And we look at the source material, the expert take right off the bat is a complete reframe. It's a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
We need to stop thinking of this as a performance. This isn't a TED Talk. It isn't a toast at a wedding where you're trying to be the wittiest person in the room.
Right. No pressure to get a laugh.
None. It is an act of communal grief. The sources are so adamant on this point. Sharing time is about honoring a life and connecting a community. It is not about your oratory skills.
I love that distinction.
Yeah.
I really do. It takes the spotlight off you, the speaker, and puts it on us, the community. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. When I see sharing time on a funeral program, there's a cynical part of my brain.
I know where you're going with this.
Maybe it's the part that's been to too many long meetings that thinks, did they just run out of content? Is this just filler to stretch the service to an hour?
That is such a common misconception. And it's understandable, right? We embrace structure. We fear the open mic.
You do.
But the sources argue that sharing time isn't filler at all. It is actually serving two essential, very distinct psychological purposes that the rest of the service, the planned parts, simply cannot achieve.
Okay, so break those down for us. What are the two purposes?
The first one is the obvious one, honoring the life of the deceased. We all get that.
Sure.
But the second, and this is the one we so often overlook, is supporting the living through their grief. And it achieves this through what we might call the collective portrait concept.
Collective portrait. That sounds like an art project. What does that mean in this context?
Well, think about the limitations of a formal eulogy. Usually, a eulogy is written by one person. Maybe it's a clergy member, maybe a spouse or a child.
Right, a single perspective.
A single, very specific vantage point. If the eulogy is given by the daughter, you are going to hear about the deceased as a father. You'll hear about the bedtime stories, the discipline, the terrible dad jokes.
Of course. That's her reality of him.
But you won't hear about the deceased as the guy who pulled pranks in the break room at the factory.
No. Or the guy who coached Little League for 10 years.
Exactly. You are getting a slice of the pie, but you are not seeing the whole pie. The collective portrait is the idea that no single narrative can ever capture the complexity of a human life. It's impossible.
Because we're different people in different rooms.
We are different things to different people. To your wife, you are a husband. To your boss, you are an employee. To your poker buddies, you are a total shark.
So sharing time is
Yeah.
it's like crowdsourcing the biography in real time.
That is a perfect way to put it. When you open the floor, you invite those other angles in. You get the neighbor who talks about how he always shoveled her driveway without being asked. You get the college roommate who talks about that wild road trip back in 1985. You get the colleague who talks about his integrity during a huge crisis at work.
Wow.
When you layer these little transparencies, these little stories over each other, you suddenly get a 360-degree view of the human being. A much fuller picture emerges.
And for the listener, I mean, for me, sitting in the pew, that is huge.
Yeah.
Because I might learn something about my dad
Yeah.
or my friend that I never knew.
And that deepens your connection to him, doesn't it? It makes the loss feel more profound, yes, but it also makes life feel so much richer.
Yeah.
You realize, wow, he touched people I didn't even know existed, and that, in a strange way, is incredibly comforting.
So that's the benefit for the audience, a
Mm.
huge benefit. What about for the person speaking? Why should you put yourself through that ringer?
Well, the source material talks a lot about externalizing feelings. We tend to hold grief inside. It sits in the chest. It's heavy. It's abstract, and it's very, very lonely.
It is lonely.
When you stand up and speak, you are taking that internal pressure and releasing it into the room. You are validating the loss. You are giving it voice.
But you're making it real.
You are making it concrete. You are saying, this person existed, they mattered, and I'm hurting because they are gone. There is a massive psychological release in that.
I can imagine.
And the guide notes that for many speakers, this act becomes a critical transition point, a real milestone in their grief.
A transition from what to what?
It marks the shift from the shock phase of grief, that numb, surreal, this can't be happening feeling, into the remembrance phase.
It's like crossing a threshold. You've gone from, I can't believe this happened, to, here's what I remember about them.
Precisely. You're moving from denial into acceptance through the act of storytelling.
Wow.
And families often report, this is a key insight from the funeral program site, that these impromptu, unscripted moments are the most memorable and comforting parts of the entire service.
Really, more than the formal eulogy.
Often, yes. They won't remember the specific scripture the pastor read. They won't remember the exact lyrics of the opening hymn. But they will remember the shaky, tearful story the high school best friend told. That authenticity. It sticks with you.
Okay, so we've established the why. It's valuable, it's healing for everyone involved. But that doesn't make the butterflies go away, does it?
Not one bit.
But so let's talk about the decision matrix, the to speak or not to speak, because the guide is very, very clear about one thing right up front.
Yeah.
You do not have to do this.
That is the golden rule, and it's worth repeating. Participation is optional. We need to absolve ourselves of the guilt right now. You are not a bad friend, a bad partner, or a bad child if you choose to stay seated.
That's a huge relief to hear. But how do I know? I'm sitting there, my heart is pounding, I'm clutching a tissue. How do I distinguish between, I'm just scared, but I should do this, and I really, really need to sit this one out? What are the green lights?
The guide suggests looking for compulsion rather than obligation. A green light is a strong internal desire to express something. It's that feeling of, I have something to say that needs to be said. It's almost a bubbling up inside you.
So it's not I should, it's I must.
Exactly. It's almost like a pressure building up. Ask yourself, do I have a specific memory or a message that feels unique to me? Do I have a story that if I don't tell it right now, it might be lost forever?
Ooh, that's a powerful question.
If you feel like you are the keeper of a specific flame, maybe a side of their personality that nobody else in that room saw, that is a massive green light. You're holding a piece of the portrait that no one else has.
What about doing it for the family? Is that a good reason?
That's another very valid green light. If you believe your words could bring genuine comfort to the spouse or the parents in the front row, if you look at them and think, I can tell them something that will make them smile right now, even through the tears, that is a noble, wonderful reason to push through the fear.
Okay. Flip side, the red lights.
Yeah.
When should I absolutely listen to my body and stay in the pew?
The primary red light is when the grief feels unsafe. And I use that word carefully.
Unsafe how?
If your grief is so raw, so overwhelming that you feel like you might hyperventilate or collapse or have a full-blown panic attack, that is a clear red light. We are not looking to create more trauma here.
So if I'm on the verge of losing physical control, I should stand down.
Absolutely. Also, if you have a general debilitating phobia of public speaking. I don't just mean nervousness, I mean a true diagnosed phobia. This
Yeah.
is not the time to try exposure therapy.
Right. A funeral is not a Toastmasters club.
It is not. You do not need to conquer your fears today. You just need to survive the day with your dignity and emotional well-being intact.
The expert advice on this is really compassionate. They actually say, silence is not a failure.
Presence alone is meaningful. That's the quote that really stands out.
I like that.
Just occupying the space, singing the songs, being a witness to the family's pain, that is a contribution. You do not have to perform to be present.
But I think people worry about regret, you know? If I don't speak, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. That's a real fear.
It is. It's the fear of missing out applied to grief. But the source points out something crucial. Regret cuts both ways.
How so?
You might regret not speaking, sure, but you might also deeply regret pushing yourself too hard, getting up there, and having a traumatic meltdown where you can't get a single word out and you just feel humiliated. That can be just as damaging.
Right. You have to honor your current emotional state, not some future hypothetical version of yourself.
Exactly. What can you handle right now, in this moment? That's the only question that matters.
Okay, let's say we've checked the green light. The compulsion is there. The story needs to be told. We're going to do it. Now we need the tactics. Because the biggest myth, according to our source, is that we need to deliver some cinematic, Oscar-worthy monologue.
The Churchill complex. We all suffer from it. We think we need to be profound. We think we need to sum up the meaning of life and death in 3 minutes flat.
Yeah, an impossible task.
Utterly. But the rule from the guide is simple and so freeing. Honesty over eloquence.
Honesty over eloquence. I like that.
Mhm.
But how do I prepare? I mean, especially if I just found out about sharing time 10 minutes ago when I got the program.
You need a mental filter. The guide offers a set of pre-service questions to help you zero in on a topic fast.
Okay.
Instead of asking the overwhelming question, what can I say about his 80 years on Earth, you ask smaller, more manageable questions.
Like what?
Question 1. What is the one thing I want people to remember about them? Just one. Question 2. What moment best represents who they were to me? And question 3. What did they mean to me personally?
Those are so much more manageable. The emphasis on one thing, not everything.
Exactly. And that leads directly to the most critical strategy in the whole toolkit, choosing a single focus.
Okay, tell us about the single focus.
The trap people fall into almost every time, the biography trap.
Biography trap.
They get to the mic and they try to do a timeline. Well, I met Bob in 1960, and then we went to school together, and then he got that job at the plant, and then he married Susan.
And suddenly it's 10 minutes later and everyone is just checking their watches.
And you are rambling, you're losing your train of thought, and the emotion is catching up to you because you don't have an anchor. It's a recipe for disaster.
So what does the single focus strategy do?
It says, pick one thing, a single memory, a specific character trait, a shared experience, one lesson you learned from them.
Can you give me an example of how that shifts the speech?
Sure, instead of saying Bob was a generous man, which is a generalization, a platitude,
Right, it's abstract.
you tell the story of the one time Bob gave you the actual coat off his back in a snowstorm when your car broke down. That is a single focus. It illustrates the trait without you having to list a resume of his good deeds.
And it's so much easier to remember, right? If I'm nervous, I can hold on to one story. I can't hold on to a whole timeline.
Precisely. It prevents rambling, and it acts as an anchor for your emotions. If you feel yourself getting shaky, you just go back to the story. Your only job is to tell the story about the coat. It's a life raft.
Now, let's talk logistics. The mechanics of it. Writing versus freestyle. I feel like there's a stigma about reading at a funeral, like it's too formal or stiff or something.
We need to kill that stigma right now. The source is very, very permissive here. Writing it down, even just a few bullet points on a napkin, is highly recommended.
Why is that?
Because when grief hits, your cognitive functions take a nosedive. Your memory gets spotty. Your recall fails. You might blank on the name of the deceased's wife. It happens.
Oh, that would be an absolute nightmare.
It happens. Nerves do strange things to our brains. Having a piece of paper or some index cards or even your phone, it grounds you. It gives you something to do with your hands. And reading is perfectly 100% fine.
So it's using a phone okay? I always feel like the older generation might frown on that.
You know, the etiquette on that is shifting really rapidly. 5 years ago, maybe a little questionable. Today, It's pretty standard.
Mm.
It implies that you took the time to write your thoughts down in the Notes app. It actually shows preparation. Just make sure your phone is on silent so it doesn't start ringing with a telemarketer call while you're reading.
That is a great tip. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have our single focus, we have our notes on paper or on our phone, but I still feel like I might freeze up when I get to the mic. Is there like a template, a cheat sheet for the structure?
Yes. And having this framework is the ultimate anxiety reducer. The guide suggests a simple 3-step structure. It's like a sandwich. Very easy to remember.
Okay, walk us through the sandwich. What are the 3 parts?
Step 1, the opening. You just state who you are and what your relationship was to the deceased.
Well enough.
Step 2, the memory. This is the meat of the sandwich. This is your single focus story, your anecdote about the coat.
Got it.
And step 3, the closing. A simple expression of gratitude or love or just a farewell.
Step 1 seems so obvious, but I bet people forget it all the time.
All the time, they stand up and just launch into a story, and they assume everyone knows them. But there might be distant cousins or work friends in the back whispering, "Who is that guy?"
Right.
So you just start with context. For those who don't know me, my name is Sarah, and I worked with John for 10 years. It grounds the room.
Okay, then step 2, the memory.
One thing I will always remember about John is how he never, ever let a meeting start without asking everyone individually how their weekend was. He cared about us as people first, not just as workers. That's the specific story.
And step 3, the closing.
I'm really going to miss those Monday morning check-ins. Thank you, John. We'll miss you. Done.
That is so simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's clean.
It provides emotional clarity. You aren't wandering around searching for an ending. You have a destination. And honestly, brief is almost always better.
Okay, let's talk about the execution. Because even with the best script, the best structure, the body takes over. You get up there, you see the casket, you see the crying family in the front row, and your throat just closes up. The dreaded lump in the throat.
This is where we need to talk about the concept of the forgiving audience. It's so important.
What do you mean by that?
We are conditioned by business meetings and school presentations to think that if we cry or stumble or lose our place, we have failed. We have lost composure.
Right. We think, be professional, keep it together, don't show weakness.
But a funeral audience is the most forgiving, most empathetic audience on the planet. They are not judging your delivery. They are not grading your grammar. They are grieving with you. If you cry, they don't think you're weak. They think you loved the person.
So tears are actually, they're data. They are a signal of love.
That's a great way to put it. Tears are viewed as a sign of respect, a sign of love. So the number one rule is never apologize for crying. Don't say, "I'm sorry, I'm a mess." Just be a mess. It is okay. It's the most appropriate place in the world to be a mess.
But practically speaking, if I'm sobbing and I literally cannot get a word out, what do I do?
You need some tactical pauses, some tools. First, stop talking. Just stop. Don't try to push words through a sob. That's how you start hyperventilating.
Right.
Second, breathe. Take a deep, slow diaphragm breath. Third, use props if you have them. If there is a glass of water at the lectern, take a sip. The physical act of swallowing can actually reset the vagus nerve and help stop that crying reflex.
I did not know that.
It's a great little physiological trick. And
Cool.
fourth, and this is the hardest one, allow silence.
Silence is the scary part. It feels so awkward.
In a boardroom, 5 seconds of silence feels like an hour. In a funeral, silence feels respectful, it feels heavy, it feels real. If you stand there for 10, even 15 seconds just gathering yourself, nobody's checking their phone. They are holding that space for you. They are with you.
And if you really can't finish, is it okay to
All
just
right.
bail?
It is absolutely okay. You can look at the officiant. A good officiant is watching you like a hawk for this exact reason and just give a little nod and they will step in. Or you can simply say, "Thank you," and step down. That is not a failure. That is just being human.
Let's talk about time management. We touch on being brief, but is there a hard rule? What are we aiming for?
The standard guidance is 1 to 3 minutes.
That sounds incredibly short, like shockingly short.
It is, but it's for a very good reason. Remember the collective portrait.
Yeah.
If you speak for 15 minutes, you are taking up the space of 3, 4, maybe 5 other people who might have wanted to share their piece of the portrait. You are monopolizing the memory.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
And also, grief is exhausting. I mean, physically and emotionally draining. The family in that front row is running on fumes. Listening to a 20-minute rambling story is an endurance test for them.
Yeah.
Short is compassionate.
Brevity is a kindness to the family.
It really, really is. It's a gift.
What if?
Yeah.
What if I get put on the spot? The spontaneous speaking scenario. The officiant looks right at me and says, "And now I think our host would like to say a few words." And I had nothing prepared.
Ah, the ambush. It's panic time. But the advice here is very simple. Keep it to one sentence.
One sentence.
One sentence. Do not try to wing a story. You will get lost. Just say something simple and from the heart. Something like, he changed my life and I will never, ever forget him.
That's it?
That's it. It's powerful, it's complete, and it doesn't require you to navigate a complex narrative arc on the fly. She was a good woman and I loved her. That lands harder than 5 minutes of rambling anyway. It's pure.
Okay, let's pivot to content strategy. The do's and don'ts. We talked about the single focus, but what kind of topics are safe? What should we aim for?
The do's are pretty intuitive, thankfully. You know, personal stories, positive traits, acts of kindness, expressions of gratitude, anything that uplifts the memory. But the danger zones, that's where people can get into real trouble.
Okay, lay out the danger zones for us. What's the number one thing to avoid?
The biggest one, by far, is unresolved conflict. Sharing time is not therapy. It is not the time to say, I know Dad and I had our differences, and he wasn't always there for me, but I forgive him now.
Oof. Yeah, that just sucks all the air out of the room.
It forces the entire audience to participate in your personal trauma processing. It's deeply uncomfortable, and it's inappropriate. Save that for your therapist, your journal, or a private conversation.
Oh, what's another danger zone?
Inside joke limbo.
Tell me about that. I think I know what that is.
It's when you tell a story that requires 5 minutes of complicated backstory or involves a bunch of nicknames and obscure references that only you and the deceased understood.
Right, and everyone else is just sitting there confused.
You're alienating the room, you're speaking a language nobody else speaks. The goal is connection, not confusion.
That makes sense.
Also, avoid controversial opinions. This is not the time for politics or divisive religious takes, unless it's specifically a religious service, of course, or airing sensitive family dynamics. And please, please avoid graphic details about the illness or the death itself. We are there to celebrate the life, not to review the final medical chart.
Let's talk about humor. This feels like a tricky one. I've been to funerals where people were roaring with laughter, and it felt so cathartic and right. But I've also been to others where a joke just fell completely flat, and it was excruciating.
Humor is a high-risk, high-reward element. The source says that laughter can be incredibly healing. It releases tension. It's a sign that the person's spirit, their actual joy, is still present in the room. But there is so much nuance.
So what's the rule of thumb?
The rule is keep it gentle, inclusive, and most importantly, aligned with the deceased's personality.
Okay, so if they were a known practical joker, a prank story fits.
Exactly. If they were the class clown, honor that part of them. But if they were a very serious, reserved, private person, standing up and telling a raucous story about a bachelor party in Vegas feels disrespectful.
It feels like you aren't really seeing them.
You're not. It feels like you're making it about you. And you should definitely avoid sarcasm or anything that could be embarrassing. You want people laughing with the memory, not cringing at it.
Context seems to play a huge role here, too. The funeral program site mentions that different types of services really dictate the vibe.
Oh, drastically. You absolutely have to read the room.
So walk us through the different types.
If you are at a very traditional funeral, think high church, organ music, formal vestments, the structure is going to be much tighter. Your remarks should probably be more formal, concise, and respectful of the religious gravity of the space.
Okay.
If it's a memorial service, it's often more flexible. Maybe a bit more personal storytelling is appropriate. If it's a celebration of life,
That's a whole different ballgame.
it's a whole different thing. The whole point is storytelling. You can be looser, funnier, more conversational. That's what's expected.
And what about graveside services?
Graveside is unique. You are outside, maybe it's windy, maybe it's raining or freezing cold, people are standing up, maybe on uneven ground. Brevity is king.
Just get to the point.
Get to the point. Keep it to 60 seconds. A short poem, a prayer, one quick memory. Do not launch into a 10-minute speech while people are shivering and uncomfortable.
That is great practical advice. Cultural awareness is huge here, too, I imagine.
Huge and critical. You have to observe the tone and follow the officiant's lead. Some cultures and religions prefer very formal eulogies given only by designated elders or clergy. In that context, jumping up to grab the mic might be seen as intrusive or deeply disrespectful.
And in other traditions.
In other traditions, it's a free-for-all, a joyful noise, and everyone is expected to contribute. The bottom line is, if you aren't sure, ask the funeral director director or a family member beforehand. Don't just assume.
We have talked a lot about the act of speaking, but what about the alternatives? What if I go through that decision matrix and I hit a clear red light, but I still want to share? I still want to add my piece to that collective portrait.
And that's a very common feeling. And there are beautiful, powerful alternatives that don't involve a microphone.
Such as?
You can write a memory card. A lot of funerals have these available at the entrance now, with a little box to put them in.
I've seen those.
You can contribute to a memory jar if they have one. But one recommendation from the funeral program site that I really love is submitting a tribute for the printed program itself.
How does that work exactly?
You write your story or your thought out beforehand. You send it to the family or the funeral home, and they actually print it in the booklet that everyone gets. It becomes a permanent part of the day. It's shared with everyone, but you don't have to say a single word out loud. It's a way to be heard without having to speak.
I love that. Or you can just cheer privately with the family later on.
And honestly, that might be the most impactful and meaningful option of all.
Why do you say that?
Think about the family's state of mind. On the day of the funeral, they are in a complete fog. They are shaking hundreds of hands, they're physically and emotionally exhausted, they might not even truly hear what is being said from the podium.
They're just trying to get through it.
They're in survival mode. But a week later, 2 weeks later, when the flowers have wilted, the casserole dishes are finally empty, and the house is terribly quiet, that is when the grief really hits.
The loneliness sets in.
Exactly. And receiving a letter, a handwritten letter, with a specific wonderful story about their loved one at that exact moment, that is a lifeline. That's a true gift.
That is a profound point. The grief lasts a lot longer than the service.
It does. And extending the sharing time via letter or an email helps patch the loneliness that inevitably comes later.
Let's just briefly touch on the other side of the equation. The planners. We've been talking to the potential speaker. But what if I am the one organizing the funeral for my dad? And I am terrified that my Uncle Bob is going to get up and talk for 20 minutes about his gout or his controversial political views.
The rogue speaker fear. It is so valid.
It's very real.
It is. If you are the planner, you need to set the stage to protect the service and, more importantly, to protect the family.
How do you do that without seeming controlling?
First, clear expectations. You can't just open the floor and hope for the best. That's leaving it to chance. Second, use printed guidance. The funeral program site recommends putting a little note right in the program that explains how sharing time works.
What would that note say?
Something gentle, like, following the eulogy, we invite you to share a brief thought or memory. To allow time for all who wish to speak, we kindly ask you to keep your remarks to around 2-3 minutes.
Oh, that's brilliant. That sets the social contract before anyone even stands up.
Exactly. It depersonalizes the rules. It's not you shushing them. It's the program. It's the official rule.
Smart. Good else.
Third, set safety rails with the officiant beforehand. Tell them privately, please manage the flow. If someone goes way over 3 minutes or if they start getting inappropriate, I give you my full permission to gently step in and guide us back. That is their job. Let them be the bouncer so you can be the griever.
That is so smart. You shouldn't have to police your own father's funeral.
You absolutely should not. Delegate that responsibility.
We have covered a massive amount of ground here. We've gone from, the biological fear of public speaking to the deep psychology of collective grief. We've looked at the decision matrix, the prep work, the structure, the execution, the danger zones, and the alternatives.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. As we wrap this deep dive up, what is the synthesis here? What is the big picture takeaway for our listeners?
I think it comes back to that core philosophy we started with, meaningful funerals. They are not measured by flawless execution. They are never measured by perfection. They are measured by genuine connection.
We put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect, to have the right words, to be composed and strong. But the source material tells us again and again that the right words are simply the honest ones.
Yeah.
Whether your words are eloquent or tearful, whether you planned them for days or thought of them on the spot, they matter. They matter because they come from a place of love and authenticity. Authenticity beats polish every single time.
Authenticity beats polish. That is a mantra for life, really, but especially here.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And if I can offer just one final, maybe slightly provocative thought for the listeners to chew on.
Please.
We often think of funerals as being entirely about the person who has left. It's their service. It's about their past, their life.
Of course. That's the whole point, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. Sharing time reveals something else. It reveals that the ceremony is equally about the community that remains.
When we stand up and share our stories, we aren't just looking backward. We are actively patching the hole in the social fabric that their death has created. We are weaving our individual stories together to say, we are still here, we are hurt, but we are still a we are together.
Wow.
So speaking isn't just a tribute to the dead, it's an act of solidarity with the living.
That is a beautiful way to think about it. It's not a performance, it's an act of repair. It's about patching the fabric.
Exactly.
Thank you for that insight. And thank you to everyone for listening to this deep dive on the Funeral Channel Network podcast. We hope this toolkit helps you navigate those difficult moments with a little more confidence and a lot more heart.
Take care, everyone.
See you next time.